Okay, so let me start it. So hello everyone, and thank you very much for joining us. And welcome to this webinar, which is called Real Use Cases for Data Lineage. And it's hosted by Manta and our partner Clean Data. And I'm sure that you've attended many webinars before, where you just sit and listen, but today you will be deciding what we should cover. So look forward to that. After a short introduction, we'll cover two most common use cases where data lineage can be of a great help. And after that, we will let you choose which problems you are facing and you would like to get handle on. And if you're asking how it will work, it's very easy. You all should see on the right side of the screen a banner where you can chat and ask questions. When the time comes, you will see there a poll question, and you simply choose the use case you wish to explore further, and the one with the most votes will be covered. You'll be notified by our speakers when to do so, and in total, you get to choose 2 use cases. Our speakers today are Neil Burton, a Chief Technology Officer at Clean Data, and Jan Ulrych, Vice President of Research and Education at Manta. This is all for the introduction. If you have any questions during the webinar, please put them into the chat. Okay, Neil, it's all yours.
Appreciate it. Hi, everyone. I'm Neil Burton, CTO of Clean Data. We are a boutique advisory firm. We specialize in the nagging problems that customers face in the data and analytics space, particularly for the mid-market size firms who face the gnarly problems left behind by the big vendors. So, we think of it kind of like the grout between the tiles, right? Snowflakes of the world are the tiles, but you need grout to finish the job. As a core strategy, we at Clean Data, we identify and partner with best-of-breed software providers that solve important and specific problems. When it came to this challenging data lineage problem, we spent a lot of time reviewing the market to find the best solution out there to address data lineage, one that works and is affordable for our clients. And Manta was a clear choice for us. And in today's world, one of the challenges we see with companies struggling with these days is around how to implement a data governance strategy, how to do it in a way that keeps complexity at bay. It is not rocket science, and data lineage is the first and one of the most important steps that customers should take. So I'm really looking forward to today's discussion around various real-world use cases for data lineage. And thanks, and over to you, Jan.
Thank you, Neil. So before we move forward with the particular use cases, let me just give a very brief introduction to data lineage, just to set the baseline, what we are talking about and where we are coming from. Data lineage is really an area of data management that actually helps us understand and capture the most complex part of our data management systems, and that's actually dependencies between them. In every business, we have many systems that are not siloed anymore, but they are somehow sharing the data and talking to each other. And these dependencies are causing lots of issues in our day-to-day lives, in implementing new features, in understanding the dependencies between them, in troubleshooting any sort of issues, and so on. And Manta as a platform actually helps us to capture these dependencies, identify them, and explore them in a way that makes it much more flexible and automated than previously known. As a solution, Manta is actually being used by many customers worldwide, as you can see from the brief list over here. It's not just in the regulatory environment, such as banking, but also in manufacturing or healthcare. Neil, over to you. Let's start with the first case that we wanted to discuss today about impact analysis.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks, Jan. Understanding the impact of a potential change within an environment is a feature that has a huge bang for buck, and it's a universal problem that any company, small or large, and one that we at Clean Data are seeing in virtually every company we engage with, being able to determine downstream effects of making a change, what ETL jobs need to be modified, what reports in Tableau are going to break and need to be fixed, etc. Regardless of technology components in use, being able to see the impact analysis across all of them from a single tool is critical. So one of Manta's European customers, a Czech insurance company, had a relatively large environment of 41,000 scripts. They wanted to automate data lineage mapping for various projects, such as conducting impact analysis, defining how much code can be included in each release without their internal software crashing, and for building a proper business glossary. So they chose Manta.
Exactly. And so if we go into a little bit more detail about how they are actually using Manta and about the reasons why they do that. So 41,000 scripts, if you think about it, it may not sound as that much, but if you start walking through those manually, it's a lot. You basically cannot do anything in a week or less time frame. So that's exactly what the customer was facing. The fact that they are not able to quickly identify the impact of a change that they are about to make was really preventing them from being very, very agile and being able to deliver new features and business functionalities fast, right? So with Manta, they were able to actually analyze these scripts, these 41,000 scripts, very quickly. Basically, within a few hours, they got the complete mapping of the environment, and as a result, they are now able to perform that impact analysis on daily basis within a few minutes, what previously used to take days or weeks. Now, being able to perform the impact analysis itself is extremely useful for them, and that's really why they started using the product. But over the time, they actually found out that there are many more use cases that they can benefit from using the same lineage information and metadata that they already have. And one of them was actually being able to compare what is actually implemented in the system, in the code, with the business process and the business understanding of how the process should work. And thanks to that, they were actually able to discover a few discrepancies that they were able to fix very, very soon. But also, they actually made this as a process where the technical consultants and developers can now talk with the business and subject matter experts and have a common ground that they can start the discussion from, right? When you have the understanding of your dependencies of the lineage, how the data actually flows, you can discuss whether it's right or wrong or whether it should be changed, but you have a middle ground that you can start the discussion from. And that was actually very interesting because it completely changed how they were doing the impact analysis in the first place. They actually started having these joint discussions between technical and business teams to make sure that the system as it works now is doing what it's supposed to do, but also that the change is not going to impact anything that was not intended to be changed. Neil, over to
you. The second use case we want to cover is one that's very topical in today's environment as companies look to modernize their data warehouse and analytics systems. How do I migrate in a step-by-step fashion with ease from on-premise to cloud? How do I reduce the time and the cost and the risk in these migration processes, and being able to understand the effort and scope, and as you do these migrations, specific areas of risk that I can give special attention during the migration. So for that, one of Manta's financial customers embarked on a ground to cloud migration effort and needed a way to scope their project into manageable phases rather than do everything in a big bang. And they had thousands of Oracle tables, hundreds of reports, and an equivalent number of ETL jobs So the process of how do we go about selecting subsets of those data assets and move them up into the cloud environment as part of an initial implementation. So they brought in Manta to help them with this exercise.
Thank you, Neil. And this is, again, a very interesting case where understanding of the dependencies is really critical. Because when you're migrating something, the first thing that you want to make sure is that you don't break anything, right? Especially when it is going in phases. Nowadays, as Neil said, it's not very popular to do big bang migrations, but we typically go in for example, weekly or bi-weekly increments. And we want to make sure that everything is migrated correctly, but also that in these weekly increments, we don't break anything that is already working, right? And that's exactly the case where you really need to understand the dependencies. So in this case, the customer was really looking to understand how they can partition their environment and the migration process into manageable phases to make sure that the phases are sized correctly, that the phases are about the same size. And also to make sure that they first migrate things that are really critical and that do not depend on anything else. And the additional phases that will come in the upcoming weeks, that these additional phases only depend on items that have already been migrated or that are included in the current phase. And along with that, to make sure that any reports that are staying in the current environment will not be broken and that they will still be updated, right? So again, understanding of the dependencies between these database tables and schemas and their ETLs and store procedures was sort of crucial here. In this case, it was a scope of a few thousand ETL jobs and about 10,000 procedures roughly. So with Manta, basically the environment was mapped in just a few hours to understand the scope and to be able to define the phases of the migration. But again, as the customer was running through the migration process, they actually realized that during the migration process, they are actually making some changes into the existing environment. Typically, those were bug fixes that when they were just hot fixing some critical issues in the old environment. And among others, they wanted to make sure that these bug fixes will make it to the new environment. And when bug fixing the old environment, that any things that have been already migrated have been bug fixed as well. And the live lineage information, which was updated on a daily basis, actually helped them to achieve this without any additional effort. So as they had their processes mapped along with this hot fixing, they could very quickly and easily identify the impact on the already migrated environment as well. Excellent. And now we're getting to the part where you can choose the topic of your interest. And Neil, can you maybe describe these a bit?
Yeah, no problem. Thanks, Jan. Yeah, so we've walked through a couple of very common use cases that we see at pretty much every site we go into. What we want to do now is give you the opportunity to choose from a number of different options. Choose the one that is of most interest to you, and then we'll be able to walk through a use case. And this poll, the first one of the two we'll do in today's session, is around governance and regulatory environments and compliance needs. So if you go to the poll section, I'll start the poll. And then you can select the option which is the most interest to you. We'll give it about 30 seconds and get some votes to come in, and then we'll choose the winner from that, and then we will talk through that specific use case. But we see today, certainly clean data as we go into a lot of environments, governance is a critical aspect of the analytic infrastructure that companies are trying to address now. And data lineage and Manta are a key aspect and a key component of delivering a robust governance program. We'll give it a few more seconds. We're getting some good votes coming in. Okay, it looks like we've all our votes in, and the percentages aren't changing too much anymore. So I'll end the poll, and what we've got is, we'll see that the one that we got the most votes for was the automatic identification of sensitive data locations. So that's
excellent. That's a good one.
That's an excellent one. That's certainly one that's high on the radar at a lot of companies these days, big and small, and an area where we're seeing a lot of interest from companies that we talk to from an advisory perspective. Right, it's an area where they're acutely aware of both the risk and also the sheer complexity involved in the identification of sensitive data within their environments. And a lot of companies that we talk to around this topic, when we go in there and we start scratching on the surface, is very quickly they realize that they've got data in a lot of cases, sensitive data stored in places they did not expect, right? They're out in Tableau reports for sure in the data warehouse, but they're also in their object store in S3, they're in the CSV file that's over here on this other system. So being able to find all that information, bring it into a centralized environment and give me both the lineage of how the data flows, but also identify the areas where we've got sensitive data really allows me to play good with my governance program. And for this use case, we had a customer that had to deal with several EU and local regulations covering sensitive data. And obviously, these days you have some pretty significant fines if you don't comply. And one of the biggest challenges they had was to identify the various locations where sensitive data was being stored and to discover the relationship between them. Not all records were equally sensitive as well. Sometimes you've only got only a part of the record had sensitive data. Records about customers, the name is public, but the social security number is not. And the complexity of the environment made it impossible for the customer to analyze 5,000 BTK and TPT scripts for Teradata, 10,000 database tables and views, and all the associated macros and store procedures. And then just to make it even more complicated, 1,000 odd Informatica workflows. Being able to find out all these locations and how they are all stitched together was critical to this particular need. And they brought in Manta to solve this problem for them. So, Jan, back to you.
Thanks, Neil. That was an excellent intro. So today's practice for identifying the sensitive data in many cases is to run some sort of data profiling tool or data profiling scenario against the actual data sets themselves. In this particular case, the environment was really complex, and basically customer did not want to run the profiling scenarios against all of those data stores, because they knew that with some of them, this profiling may potentially cause some slowdown and put additional load on those data stores, and they simply couldn't afford that. And also, they actually knew that in many cases, the data is not anyhow produced in some of those systems. It's just being consumed from other areas. So this sounded like a perfect case for understanding the data pipelines and the data lineage. So what we actually did is they already had some of the sensitive data sets identified in their source systems, and they had them tagged there. And when they actually ran the data lineage analysis through their environment, it actually showed them where those data sets are being also propagated through that environment, and where those sensitive data actually resides as well, right? So this was actually really critical for them, because by analyzing the code, they were able to get these additional sensitive data locations without impacting their existing environment, without putting any additional load on their existing environment. And actually, along with that, they were actually able to identify several cases where even profiling would not really help them in the first place. Basically, those were the cases where they were somehow manipulating the sensitive data, but there was still the sensitive data located in the environment in a certain point of time. And basically, if the code was changed improperly, or maybe if the sensitive data was inadvertently logged into some log files, these cases would not have been identified. So this is also a very, very interesting case where Lineage and understanding of the dependencies between the systems actually help them identify the locations of those sensitive data very, very, very quickly. All right.
Excellent. Oh, we've done one poll. We can do a second one. Yeah, time for another poll. This one we're going to focus on in the DevOps arena. Yeah, same process as last time. You go to the poll section, vote for the option that most interests you. We'll get the poll started now. It's kind of an interesting set of use cases here. You know, ones that come up a lot these days as companies start to look at how they modernize their infrastructure, but they're also modernizing their approaches to delivering data and analytics, right? It's taking a lot of the best practices that we see in software development these days around continuous integration, continuous delivery, but also applying that to data and analytics environments. And it's an area where a lot of companies are starting to talk to us around how do we improve our DevOps aspects as businesses want new improvements to the system, they want changes, they want updates, they want it fast. We need to do it in a way that's going to mitigate risk and do it rapidly, not spending weeks and weeks and months doing testing before we deploy, but actually do it in a much more efficient and reliable and predictable manner to deliver the business value to the businesses in the timeframes that they require. Another 5 seconds. It looks like everyone's got their voting in, so we'll end this poll. And 50% of our votes were around creating accurate and up-to-date and reliable documentation. So this one's a favorite one of mine. It has been for years. Back in the days when data warehousing first started, your documentation was done manually. People would write up a documentation, and 2 weeks later it's out of date. And then so what we've found over the years is that if the documentation is not up to date and accurate, what's the point? And we know the only way to maintain accurate and up-to-date documentation is to actually automate the process of generating it. With analytic environments now being mission critical and not nice to haves like they were 20 or 25 years ago, it's imperative that the documentation is actually accurate. So bringing in Manta here is a huge value add for maintaining in documentation, Lineage, etc. So we had a large healthcare customer that was struggling with their large data warehouse environment, outdated libraries. They had multiple CIO offices, multiple ETL teams working in 6 different tools, no standardized process to implement ETL jobs, and built like a lot of environments over a number of years, right? Over 20 years in this case. They'd also acquired a number of companies as part of the exercise and needed to understand how all of this stuff stitched together and understand their documentation. For them, it was either poor or non-existent, and going through all the ETL code manually was not an option, right? There's no way to figure out where problems exist. Your risk when you deploy and make changes is significant. So bringing in Manta to maintain an automated documentation environment was critical to the success of this environment going forward. So Jan, I'll let you describe that in more detail.
Thanks, Neil. Yeah, this actually really nicely ties to the prior 2 or 3 cases that we discussed. This documentation is really becoming an issue nowadays because with acquisitions of other companies or potential simple hotfixes and improvements in the existing environment, and the documentation that was available is already out of date. So, and then if you don't have the right documentation, it's very hard to perform any sort of migration, modernization, impact analysis, anything like that is very inefficient. So again, this very much relates to understanding the flows of the data, where it is coming from, where it is going to. And with Manta providing that live scan of their data environment, it actually allowed them to have documentation not only up to date, but also unified across those environments that used to be independent. So as you can see on the slide, 6 different ETL tools, many databases involved, and a single layer of reporting built on top of it. That was really a nightmare to manage and to understand. So with analyzing the lineage, they now basically get a complete documentation and understanding of their code and how it moves the data. And as a result, they are actually very well prepared for implementing new changes, implementing new features, new reporting, but also simply understanding the environment and resolving issues that may arise, or simply answer questions from the business users much faster than it was possible before implementing Manta.
Excellent. I think that's it for the use cases.
Yes.
Appreciate your time.
Great. Great. Thank you both, Neil and Jan, for covering those use cases that the audience just chose. If there's anyone in the crowd who has a question, now is the time to put them in a chat. And if you're interested in learning more, you can download the white papers that you can see on your screen in the white banner, or visit getmanta.com and cleandatainc.com. And I can see that we have already a few questions here. So let's start. Jen asks, what % of Lineage ends up needing to be customized?
That's an excellent question. It really depends on the environment. So Manta provides scanners for most commonly used databases, ETL tools, and programming languages. But at the same time, if there is something homegrown or very custom, that definitely needs to be customized. And it's very hard to provide a generic answer. But it can be anywhere from like 1 to 30%. Neil, I'm not sure if you have any more details to add to this.
No, I don't. I think the common source like databases, which are relatively straightforward, it's very low customization. But yeah, if you get into any homegrown systems where you need to, again, one of the advantages of Manta, right? You can plug in some stuff there. You'll have a little bit more work to do, but you do get it integrated into the environment, which is a huge value add.
Okay, thank you. Another question here is, how do you cover an environment that include multiple technologies? Yeah, so with that, that's really the reason for the lineage in many cases, that within a single system, the lineage can be fairly straightforward, even though we see with our customers that it's still very complex, or can be very complex. With multiple technologies, it's even more important. And with that, Manta actually provides the scanners to cover the lineage across multiple technologies and stitch those together. But at the same time, as we discussed, in some cases, you may need to customize it, especially in case of very specific homegrown solutions.
Yeah, and I think from our clean data perspective, most organizations that we talk to these days have multiple technologies in play, potentially multiple database platforms, reporting tools, being able to bring all of that information together and stitch it together into a cohesive single view is critical, both to the IT side of delivering features faster, with more reliability, understanding the impact analysis, all the way through to the Tableau report, what's going to break, and also from a governance standpoint, where is my sensitive data? Where's it flowing through the system? Being able to see it from a central tool is a huge value add for both the business and the IT side of the house.
And to add to it, this is actually a great case for clean data, because the tool is still a tool, or platform is a platform, but to address these specific cases and maybe niche areas, that's exactly what clean data is here for.
Okay, thank you. There's one more question. How is Manta licensed and priced? I don't know if we can address it now, but if you can just overall set how we do it in general.
Absolutely, yeah. So on the high level, we're pricing based on the features and based on the environment size, which would be measured in the number of scripts. So basically, a number of pieces of code that is moving the data across your environment. And we can definitely discuss more if you're interested.
Okay, great. And last question I have here is, how do you link Lineage to business outcomes? What business issues does Lineage typically solve?
Yeah, good. Great question. I think we cover some very specific use cases here. I think what we're seeing is both from the development IT side of the house, we've got the impact analysis and mitigating risk and improving the speed of delivery into the analytic environments. And then from the business side, you've got the governance and understanding where my data is, where's it going, and what are we doing to it. So I think there's in today's world where the speed of delivery is critical, but also the governance requirements are being pushed onto companies big and small. And tools like Manta and providing good lineage are critical to this success.
Okay. So thank you all. I don't see any further questions, but if you do have some, then feel free to send them either to getmanta.com or cleandatainc.com, and we will make sure to answer them all. So thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.